welcome to another episode of the Chronicles of Mr. I'm Mr. Pierre. So glad to be joined by Jasmine, aka Jazz Parks. Jasmine, so glad that you're here. Welcome to the
I'm
podcast.
super excited to be here. I'm super
I'm super
excited about it.
same. Like we were chatting right before officially hitting the record button. Um, and just to give folks an idea of child-like creative, if you were to like give a elevator pitch,
Yeah,
what would it be?
I am looking to build connection, community, and like full, honest self-expression for everyone through art, through
Hmm.
the vehicle of art. That's mostly it, I guess. But as it's like my philosophy for making the way that I approach making an art, because children learn through discovery and they don't have like the knowledge to have to they don't have the knowledge to know things, so they simply have to explore and discover and try things out. That's just the nature of it. And I
Right.
think there's something really resilient and honest and like authentic about that experience that we lose as we grow up. And so that's the way that I make art and the moniker that I practice under, and
Awesome.
it's both of those things.
I appreciate um, that the realization and acknowledgement that students, I don't know if it's Bruce Lee, but he's the one who's coming to my mind. Like the cup is empty, and they are okay with the cup being empty, and that they're like looking
Yeah.
to learn rather than like, oh, I already know X, Y, Z, therefore I'm going into this
Hmm.
creating a piece with the mindset of like, hey, it's going to be similar to this, similar to that. Whereas kids are like, you give me colors, you give me whatever medium, and I'm just going to make stuff and figure out what.
Yes.
All right, this crumbles, great, or this is a bit more tactile, great. And that, yeah, we lose that a little bit when we get older and become a bit more staunch in our ways. And I'm really looking
Hmm.
forward to this conversation because we were saying a couple of things of the systems that are already in place don't have to remain that. They can be changed if enough of us are like,
Yes.
yeah, let's change this. So yeah, I, I, I let me start there then, or ask this question of how long has it been since you've been in the education space?
Yeah. So formally in a school system, probably 2 years. So I
Mm-hmm.
started teaching in a classroom, sixth and seventh grade ELA, and the sixth grade remedial English class and a critical thought class last year in July of 2023.
Okay.
Yes. But before that, I had a role where I kind of got my feet wet as a permanent sub at a school. And that was chaotic because what I was told is that, oh, I'd be teaching English. And then when they hire somebody else in one classroom, like they would just replace me. But what actually happened is I was co-teaching and also still subbing. And it was like a whole thing. Yeah, it's a whole thing. I can't even explain what that was like, but I wouldn't know if I would be myself co-teaching
Mm,
with my other teachers or if I would be subbing for somebody till I showed up every day at 7:30 or whatever. So it's
right.
like not that much turnaround, not that much plan time. And I was signing up for English and I like thought I was signing up for English, but I ended up teaching a sixth grade math class, a seventh grade history class, an eighth grade math class, like partnering with these teachers to help them. And it was very chaotic and overwhelming. And at
Yes.
the time I couldn't really understand why. I was like, man, why can't I just and I just did not last long. It was a very difficult school. Like not because the children are difficult or anything, but because the social dynamics around it, like the school had every ism you could think of, all just kind of affecting it at one time. And it's based on geography, like where the school was sitting
Yeah.
really dictated what its culture was like.
Right.
And it was just a really difficult one. So then I kind of got out of teaching because I was like, oh, this is not for me. Like I can't tell. But before that, I started teaching anyway because I took this job in college as a student worker at this English language institute. And I was
Cool.
like, you know what? Awesome. So all I was doing at the time was like, I was 19 or 18 or 19. And I was filing papers and like helping people process their student visas and stuff like that. And it opened up an opportunity because they needed somebody to teach an elective. And so I was like, oh, they were like, do you want to do that? And I was like, sure. And so I started teaching this elective and I got to choose. So I chose American culture through film. And the
Hmm.
first term that I did it, because it was an 8 week, they did it by terms because of the way that the semester
Right.
ran. I showed the first season of Stranger Things because it had just come out. But most of my students were non-native English speakers from different countries all over. And I had a lot of Korean students. I had a lot of Chinese students, a lot of um, students that spoke Arabic. And then I had a couple of students from Mali, Africa in that one class. But Stranger Things had just came out, and it wasn't a huge um, like global phenomenon like it has become yet.
Yeah.
So they watched it with me, and we went through and we talked about language, and we talked about different phrasing and thing like that. And also it was like a little bit uncanny valley because it was set in the 80s. So they're like, oh, I never seen that. I'm like, me neither. Like, sorry, I was born in 97. I don't know. Like, allegedly this is that, that type
Yeah.
of, it forced us to have to talk. And because everybody didn't speak the same language, it forced English, it forced me to get better at explaining things. And so from there, I kind of transitioned into teaching in a short stint on a teaching team in Vietnam when I went on a short trip, and came back and was like hooked on it. Like, I started these programs in churches, and I started these programs that joined these programs that already existed to get them more available. And
Yeah.
Knoxville has a really big Spanish speaking population and a big population from Burundi. And I think they speak Korundi. That's the language that they speak. And so started some of those. And I just like loved it. I loved exchanging cultures. I loved the fact that like we just like people were people, and it was beautiful, and it was holy and sacred in that way. And that's why I started teaching. And so now I'm trying to still kind of find my footing of what a teacher like me who has the skills to teach and
Yeah.
teaches, but not like the kind of socialization of being like a teacher at school, because I studied child and family study, but I specifically studied not the teaching route on purpose. So it's a difficult balance now.
I'm listening to you and I'm hearing and knowing that I've had these conversations with other individuals about they love to teach, but there's so much other stuff that's in the water that um, causes them to be hesitant to jump into the waters or to be like, hey, I dipped my toe in it. I'm now going to dip out. Um, because hearing you speak about using Stranger Things to teach um, sounds amazing. And I'm sure that there are students who are like, that would be so much better than giving me this multiple choice, something or another that's going to allow me to assess whether or not I truly understand the language and have a grasp of language, idioms and cultures and time
Mm-hmm.
periods of like, oh, this is actually where this originated from, or using different ways to teach. And in theory, I'm sure there's a principal, an admin person who's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Let's incorporate that. But the moment there's any sort of pushback, or a parent or whomever,
Yes.
are you truly
Yes.
going to keep your feet on the fire, or is it going to be like, oh yeah, this was great, and now pivot and do something else?
Yeah. I have had that tension. I've managed that tension a lot last year. So teaching English is already a bit of a challenge in a public school system, but I guess that school was charter. So regardless, in a school system it's a little bit challenging because day one the students let you know, like, I don't like to read, I don't like to
Yeah,
write, I don't
right.
like English, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be here. So you're fighting like motivation from the start. Like
Yeah,
they already see you, and they're like, you're the English teacher, and you're like, oh, okay. Like they have this attitude, so you've got to kind of win them over in that way. But then more than that, like depending on the age, like you're everything. You're their parent at school, you are their
yeah,
counselor, you are their therapist, and their hair, they do their hair, you help them fix clothes, you help them eat if they haven't. And that's like completely out of their control. They're children. um and then also, like, you do spend a significant time with these children who you grow to love and get to know, and like it's just it makes sense to me why people try it and they're like, absolutely not. Because that was me. Like, I tried it a couple years ago and I was like, you know what, you will never catch me back in a school ever again. Like, and now here I am.
yeah.
Like, had a terrible experience, and it really does depend on the school too. Like, I had a terrible
Hmm.
experience at the school I was at in Florida. I was in Tampa for a year, and so that was really nightmarish. But there's like the culture of teaching, there's this expectation that like you're kind of reading between lines, or like a parent would email me and be like, why is Johnny doing badly in class? And I would explicitly say, like, Johnny sleeps every day. He doesn't pay attention, therefore he's failing. But what I learned, like, there's this expectation of like, oh, you got to kind of floral your language. Like,
Yeah.
Johnny's a fantastic student when he pays attention. When
Yeah.
Johnny's locked in, he's a joy to have in class. He does struggle to stay awake. You know, you hear like how you have to kind of, but in my mind, that shouldn't be true. And in Vietnam, that wasn't true. Like, it is very much shame, honor culture. It is
Mm,
collective. So like when you're teaching there, if they miss and you like chastise them publicly, that's normal. It's expected. And they're like,
yeah.
of course you should. Like, we all need to be at a certain standard and that person's not. Like, but here you would never be able to get away with something like that, like kind of othering or something like that. It's just a different way to do education and a different culture to navigate. And I guess like too, I am neurodivergent. I have recently realized at 27 that I'm autistic.
Mm,
And so there's just like a sensory element to teaching too that like can overwhelm. Like there's always sound. They say Miss Parks 34,000 times a day. You know,
yes.
like every
Yes.
small decision, you're making probably 20,000 decisions by 3:30, you know.
You are
And that's
not
like on a standard day.
right. And to listeners, she is not being hyperbolic. It's literally that many thousands of decisions that are being made, and depending on your
Micro.
grade level. Yeah, depending on
Yes.
the age level, because you could have the kinder babies where I could see that number being astronomical.
Yes.
I work in middle school, or predominantly spent my years in middle school, and even still, it's like, kiddo, you're 13, you're 12. Like there are some questions
Yes.
that you're asking that you really shouldn't be asking me. Like you should, like you asking where your pencil is like, how am I? Why is that on me? Like you got a book
Yeah.
bag, you got a pencil case, but it is understanding. And I think as a teacher, once you've been teaching for a little bit, you realize, yeah, kids are at different spaces, and although you feel like, hey, they should, but I got to meet them where they're at and then help them
Right.
get a little bit better.
It's like the
It
balance of, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought
No,
you
no,
were,
go for it,
it kind of, but I was just going to
sis.
say
It's all
it's
good.
the balance of like, of setting an expectation and trying to hold them to a standard while
Yep.
also almost knowing that like in many ways they're not going to meet that standard and you're going to have to offer grace before it
Yeah.
even happens.
Right.
Like and that is a challenge, I think, for my brain to like get in the habit of, but I've totally like been practicing and gotten better, but it's not a natural like skill for
No,
me.
and it comes with time. I think similar to knowing that you are a person who cooks, like the first time you make scrambled eggs, or excuse me, let me not do scrambled, let me do a poach. The first time you poach an egg, it is rough. Like it sounds simple. It sounds simple. Cracking egg, boiling water.
Yeah.
But there's so much of how you crack the egg. Did you add a little salt or the vinegar in the boiling water? How boiling is it? How all these things to, and then keep your eye on it, when to scoop it out.
Yeah.
All of these things that, in theory, similarly, we go to school, we learn in theory what it is, but then the actual act of cooking that egg, the actual act of teaching, you're like, hey, yo, professor taught me this, or, chef taught me that, but it is not the same when you're actually
Yeah.
doing it. And then to
Right.
also know, like you mentioned, where you are geographically speaking, northeast versus southeast versus the west versus midwest versus another country, and culturally what
Yeah.
it means to like what's acceptable or not is gonna differ on how you quote unquote cook that egg or teach um,
Yeah.
a kiddo. What's
Yeah.
something what's something that you now know that you're like, yo, I wish I would have known this sooner because it would have made my whole pedagogy or art of teaching so much better.
Honestly, the thing that I think I get hung up in is mostly taking care of myself. Like it can
Hmm,
be so all consuming. Like it will just eat me up if I let it. If I don't have the practice of like, you know what? Like the work will still be there no matter what. Like it is an
right.
endless job and I will never fulfill all the things until the end of the year. And even then it's like some stuff
Still,
missed and that's
yeah,
just how it is. But
yeah,
like getting comfortable with like constant in process and then few moments of like done, I feel satisfied, versus I think a lot of time culture is like you're supposed to have these big flashes and your in progress is behind closed doors. Teaching is the inverse. Like teaching makes it impossible for that to be true. So for me, I think now in my second year, fully in a school system, what I have learned is like patience and kind of just the kids, if they don't get it, you know what? That's okay. We'll just take another day, and it's not actually that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Because ultimately the goal is not to hit like every milestone and hope they pass the test. It's like, are they learning? Are they quality people? Is their character good? Those are the things I ultimately care about. But sometimes I can conflate the two because there's like this forced sense of urgency that really doesn't actually exist when you take a step back. Like it really doesn't. Because if we really cared about achievement, then our like kind of national tests and things and the ways we approach stuff probably wouldn't be the same if we actually cared about tests the way we claim to.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's where I'm like, it's a much more enjoyable process. And I'm also in a little bit of a different role. I don't think I will ever be a very fantastic traditional classroom teacher where I've got 30 kids all day, or I've got last year when I was teaching 6th grade and 7th grade, I had 115 students every single day across 4 preps. And that was like, ooh, and there was no team. It was me. I was English and there was another guy that did English, and like it, there's a lot of turnover. Teaching has a lot of turnover. So you can't necessarily always get super like nestled with your colleagues, depending on where you are in your school. It's like, it can be a like rug pulled out from under you experience. Yeah. So it just really depends. But I've learned to just kind of take the waves and not be so rigid about things. Like you can't plan every single thing.
Flexibility. Absolutely.
Yes.
Flexibility in knowing, I think, knowing yourself to then be able to know like, okay, similar to surfing, where do I need to put the weight? When do I need to ease up? The wave is going to tell me. The wave is going to do what the wave is going to do. And either you ride the wave or you're going to eat the wave. And and if that is the case, and you're just like, all right, I'm time to get out the water, kudos to you. If I were to ask you, because this is something that I love to ask the guests, and you've dropped a couple gems that I think the community is going to pick up. Is there anything that you're reading, either professionally, personally, whatever, that you're like, you know what, folks should flock to this piece of literature? What would it be?
I've got 4 books I'm reading that I've checked out. I'm a big advocate for the public library. Like I think everything we can do to save a public library, we need to, because like having access to just books for fun, or like just like all the things that libraries do. So shout out that. But there's 4 books I'm reading. I'm really into cooking and I really want to hone my skills at cooking. So I've got 4 cookbooks that I've got. One of which is, I think it's called Salt. They're right under here. They're called, one of them is called Salt, Fat, Acid, and Heat. And that's also a Netflix special. So, but I've never seen the Netflix special. Have you seen it?
It is dope. Yes, she is amazing. Yeah.
Okay. I'm in the chapter that's Salt. So like I just got the books like last week. So I've just been working through them. And it's just like, I think there's many things that do it, but food is like a natural connector. It both connects you to other people and to yourself and to earth and to like all the things that make us all one. And I love that. And it's just a hobby I enjoy. And so I'm reading that to try and get more practical skills, but also like just for fun, just because I like it. And then another book called Where Cooking Begins, and that's by Carla Lawley Music. And it's another book. She just gives a lot of recipes and a lot of things she really likes to cook and how she kind of got into cooking. And that resonates with me. And then there's this other one called Cook This Book by Molly Baz. And that's just like where I've never used fennel, but I know when I'm looking up recipes, it has like people use it. So then if I go in this book, I can look up fennel and it'll say like what its flavor profile is and like what goes well with it, and then it'll lead you to other places in the book. It's like it's almost like a scavenger
Choose your own adventure.
Yeah, and I love that. So that's
nice.
exciting. And the last one is like this book that's like it's like a intro to herbalism or something like that. And I'm not like anti-medicine or something, but I do think food can be healing and comfort.
Yes.
And so knowing different ingredients to cook when I'm sick or when I don't feel well or when I have a cough or something. I think that's powerful and impactful, especially as healthcare like skyrockets and like the
Yes.
access to medicine becomes
Yes.
less and less. It's like we have to take care of each other. And I
Yep.
have the skill to cook, so why can't I take the time to read and figure that out? So that's like where I'm at, headed there. I started this little club called Club CCC, or this organization that eventually I hope my current business, Childlike Creative, and that will become a nonprofit kind of sector together,
Yeah.
or like a community center. Because in Knoxville, where I'm at, it's like every corner you turn is a food desert. It's just true. It's just the problem of food. Once you hit a certain threshold of income or below it, I suppose,
Yep.
it's just is what it is. And like there's a grocery store that's probably 7 minutes from me driving,
Mm-hmm.
but that's driving and I don't have a car. So that would be like a 25-minute walk. And I don't know if you've been to Tennessee, but East Tennessee is not flat anywhere. That's just how it is. Like it is up, down, up, down, up, down. So it's like a barrier thing. There's not
Yeah.
much public transportation. But that one grocery store is the only grocery store for me in this area where I am, and also on the east side, and also further down until you get, I mean, miles from that. And it's like, and it closes at 10. So it's like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's not so accessible. So I'm really working on ways. In this moment, it's just I'm inviting people over for dinner parties so I can practice and things like that. But I have like vision for what it could become. And it still falls in line of like the mission I have for Childlike Creative of curating connection and community together through art, through food, through these things that make us human. So
I know in a future conversation that we're going to talk about the food issue. Um, but you just mentioning the salt, fat, acid, heat um, in the book and the Netflix special or Netflix series, that was one of the things that she several times mentioned about the how food is such a bridge to create community and sustain community and uplift community. Um, and I think in our next conversation, that aspect, since that is part of one of the many hats that you wear, that is so dope, um, of cooking and how we can use food and how food can be used for bringing us together, but also to help alleviate certain ailments as well as prevent certain ailments. I mean, it's what our ancestors were doing before. You know, there was a big pharma to mass produce these medicines. Like it was from the earth, and so that would be dope to chat about next time. The last question that I like to ask folks, because it's again one of the other hats that I love to wear, is just music. If you were to create a Jasmine Jazz Parks playlist, and this is understandably at the moment that we speak. If we check in 2 days from now, or a week from now, or a month from now, we know that it's going to be different. But what would be
yeah.
your top five?
Okay, I've got them listed because yeah. All
Let's
right,
go.
so the first one is I'm so glad to see my girl Dochi getting her time in the sun. Like I've been
Yes.
riding for Dochi. I love her so much, especially last year when I was teaching in 6th grade. I would listen to her song "Crazy" every single day, and all the students knew, like they couldn't hear the words, but they could hear her be like through the door of my classroom.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, Miss Parks is here," or if they didn't hear that, she's like, "Oh, she's not here." So Dochi has a song called "Denial is a River," and that whole
Yes.
album, "Alligator Bites Never Heal," hits. And I just moved
Yes.
back from Tampa, so I feel connected to her in that way. And she's a cool girl. She's a little bit like maybe arguably non-traditionally
Mm-hmm.
stereotypically Black woman. You know, she
Yep.
presents alt in some ways,
Yep.
and I resonate with that deeply. And so "Denial is a River" is one. Look it up. Video just dropped.
Oh,
Really good.
have you
Second
seen her
one,
tiny desk? Sorry.
it changed my life.
Amazing.
It changed my life.
Amazing.
That's not true,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Sorry,
her.
I cut you off. My bad.
She's an art. She's like an artist in every sense of the world. Visually, like music, her essence, her style, like all of it. Culminate. Like she is a work of art, and I am so grateful to exist in a timeline at the same time as her. You know.
Amen.
Ariana Grande is my pop girly of choice forever. And, you know, I flirt with other pop girlies when they have their moments, but I always come back to Ariana. And
Okay.
her last album, I kind of slept on. I heard it and it was what's it called? Eternal Sunshine is what it's called. And I was like, yeah, this is fine. But now, like over time, it's starting to resonate more and more, and I
Hmm.
find myself listening to it. And I'm like, man, these are really vulnerable. Like the lyrics are hitting. It just feels good. She sings beautifully, and I love it. So, Wait for Your Love, We Can't Be Friends, Ariana Grande, number 2.
Nice.
Number 3, my girl SZA. And like SZA's controversial on the socials and in general because like when she first came out, she was branded as like a little bit awkward black girl or like she was a little
Hmm.
bit alt. But then all her biggest songs blew up and they were all like side chick anthems. You know what I mean? So now she's got this kind of connotation of like there's a really big thing on socials where it's like SZA makes music for people who have high self worth, high self esteem, but low self worth. And I think that's not true. I think I'm pushing back on that. That like SZA has the courage to say internal thoughts out loud.
Yeah.
It's just that hers are like archived together, and it just I don't know.
Yep.
I'll stand by
I
that. But
agree.
SZA has a song named Saturn that I really like because I tend to be a little bit like what's the word, is it existentialist sometimes. I'm
Hmm.
like, why are we even doing this, what's the point, like when I get really overwhelmed. And Saturn kind of plays into that like idea of like I'd rather be on another planet, I need to be elsewhere but also not really because everything needs me, like this kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
um Sabrina Carpenter, cool pop
Really?
girly, never
Really?
usurping. Listen,
Really?
she was my number one artist on my rap, and honestly,
Okay.
I wasn't surprised by that. Like whenever Espresso came out, I was like, man, this kind of hits. And at that time, I was in Florida. The sky was blue, palm tree. It just hit. It just made sense. And then later that summer, Please, Please, Please came out, and I listened to
Yeah.
that song probably 30 times a day. Like I could
Hmm.
not get enough. It didn't. And then she dropped her album later. So there's a song on there. It's the last album. It's called Don't Smile. And the lyrics are like, don't smile because it happened, cry because it's over. And
Hmm.
I think that's like the inverse of how that phrase normally goes. And
Yeah.
I'm experiencing a lot of change and transition in my own life right now. So I'm like, I can cry if I want to cry. Like it'll. I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
happy that about certain things, and some things are hard, and like that's fine. But it's got this groovy beat. It's like casual. It's like medium sad. The sound is like, but the lyrics are like, yeah.
Okay.
And then Kendrick
Okay.
and SZA, Kendrick's album GNX,
Yep.
Luther, that
Whoo!
that hits.
Yes, it
That
does.
hits.
Yes, it does. Luther,
Hits.
period. If you have Luther
No,
and
right.
or featuring Luther, for me
Exactly.
that's a home run. But
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yeah. There's a point where I just feel like, when I listen to it, it's just really good.
Yes,
Really good. It just
yes,
hits.
yes.
Hits right.
Perfect. I feel as if that is the perfect place to end this conversation. So if you are listening, I particularly believe that the gem that I picked up is one, the creating of community and how food is so critical to that. And then two, just right now, I'm not gonna lie, Sabrina wasn't on my timeline, but because you have spoken about her and the 30 plus times a day, every day, I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I'm gonna have to
But remember I said
give
I
her a
do have
listen.
autism. So let me just, the
I
repeatability of
believe
something hits different for
I
me.
I believe we are on the same wavelength for a lot of things. So I feel as if like if you spoke about it, then I'm gonna give it a shot. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think the next time we talk, we can talk about food and Sabrina Carpenter
Love.
and Ariana as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
love. Yeah, that sounds great.
cool, cool, folks. This has been another episode of the Chronicles of Mister. So glad to have had this conversation with Jasmine. Thank you, Jazz, so much for coming through.
Thank you for
Um,
having me. Totally fun.
yeah, I'm Mr. Pierre. She's Jasmine Parks, and we're out. Thank you for listening.
See ya.